A federal investigation finds a pattern of practice of discrimination against African Americans in the Ferguson Police Department and the city's municipal court. But the Department of Justice says it won't prosecute former Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson in the shooting of an unarmed black man. Attorney General Eric Holder ordered the investigation after the police shooting that killed Michael Brown last summer. Among the findings, from 2012 to 2014, 90% of those who received citations were black, and 93% of the people arrested were black. Only 67% of the population in Ferguson is black. Holder says the investigation found a community that was deeply polarized and where law enforcement was seen as a means of generating revenue.
A community where both policing and municipal court practices were found to be disproportionately harmful to African American residents. A community where this harm frequently appears to stem, at least in part, from racial bias, both implicit and explicit. It is time for Ferguson's leaders to take immediate, wholesale, and structural corrective action.
And joining us now via Skype is Missouri State Senator Maria Chappelle-Nadal. Thank you for joining us here at Arise News.
Thank you for having me.
You know, we just heard that Attorney General Eric Holder is saying it's time for Ferguson's leaders to take immediate action. And we're also learning that the mayor of the city has been fired, and an employee the mayor has fired a city employee, and there are 2 people that have been placed on leave. Have you heard anything about this?
Yes, actually, I was just watching the news and the announcement by the mayor. And, you know, there is a systemic issue that is happening right now and has been happening in Ferguson, and it's absolutely intolerable. What needs to happen is a full scope of change. You know, to isolate 1, 2, or 3 people is a start, but it really is not going to bring any confidence to the community, which is served by the Ferguson Police Department. And that is one of the reasons why I asked for the police chief to resign, and I do believe that the Ferguson Municipal Police Department should be disbanded.
Now, how is the Justice Department's findings being received by the Ferguson Police Department? What has been their response?
People are, on the ground, people are outraged by the Ferguson Police Department. I'm pretty sure they're embarrassed at this point.
The investigation apparently showed that the Ferguson police officers routinely violated the Fourth Amendment in stopping people without reasonable suspicion, arresting them without probable cause. And, you know, the terminology is kind of subjective when you stop people. And how do you see this coming to an end, if ever?
Well, here's one of the problems in our state. We are not up to date when it comes to deadly force. First of all, we don't have probable cause defined in our statutes whatsoever. I do believe this is one of the reasons why we ended up having the situation which we did with the grand jury not indicting Darren Wilson. Today, I had a bill that deals with deadly force. We will be voting that bill out of committee today. Also, I had a different bill dealing with mandated cameras as well as mandated name tags and other things that were addressed in this bill. But that legislation was also passed out of committee. So while we have a supermajority of Republicans in the Missouri legislature, at least on the side of the Senate, we all realize that what happens in Ferguson can happen anywhere in the state, and we need to be up to date in our statutes and definitely be up to par when it comes to the opinions that the U.S. Supreme Court has made in the past.
You know, Ferguson is a community comprised of people of color, but governed by a police department that's predominantly white. Do you see this ever changing?
You know what? I know that the police department, from the statement that the mayor made today and other statements that I have heard, they have wanted more and more African Americans to apply. You know, and there are a lot of applications that they're getting. But what is important at this point is that regardless of the race of police officers that are going to be hired in Ferguson, they need to be trained. I mean, when we were out on the streets protesting peacefully, there were African-American police officers who were choke-holding other people who were peacefully demonstrating. So you can have representative policing, which I would concur. I would support that. However, if they're not properly trained, then it doesn't matter at all. And so what has happened on both sides, on the side of protesters as well as police officers, none of them have understood what the rights are of individuals. And that's why it was so easy for these police officers to create arbitrary rules, one, and two, it was so easy for them to take away the human rights, the civil rights, as well as the constitutional rights of every natural-born citizen in the United States.
Senator, thank you. Thank you. I'm about to stop you there. We'll have more on this later on. That is State Senator Maria Chappelle Nadal. Thank you for joining us here at Arise News.